Okay, funny intro. Insert funny intro here. Insert very witty, funny, punchy intro here. Welcome back to another episode of My Body, My Jokes. I should come up with a better intro, I think. Hey, friends, welcome. No, that's so corny and so much worse. This is My Body, My Jokes, a podcast by me, Lorraine Gallo. Sometimes I use my middle name because I think it's catchy and cool, but sometimes I forget. I'm from, just kidding. This podcast is from, what the fuck am I doing? This podcast is being recorded and filmed at Dude IDK Studios. We love it here. You know that. We're in the heart of Denver. I'm coming off hot off of the last weekend was our Hourglass Social show. And let me tell you, that shit was popping, dude. If you weren't here and you live in Denver, next time you got to come because we've done the show twice now, and both times have been honestly so much fun. And I get too stressed about it. I let myself get too stressed about it because I'm always worried. Like, I want people to have fun. I want there to be good drinks. I want people to have good food. And I want like the comedians to do well. And both times now have been honestly like kismet. Just everyone's having a good time. All of the women are kind of getting to know each other. They file into the studio. It's a super hot crowd. And I, always book like my favorite comedians and everyone does a really good job and it's just amazing. So look out for the next one. It'll probably be in, let's see, that was February. So March, April, May, either May or June. It'll be in either May or June. We'll do like a spring edition of Hourglass Social. And look out for that one. Obviously, the roast of diet culture. I talk about it every episode. This might be, depending on when this episode comes out, the last time I talk about it. But I'm hosting that show. I'm producing a show with the Eating Disorder Foundation here in Denver called The Roast of Diet Culture. I'm going to be producing it alongside a handful of comedians who are going to get up there on stage with me and roast the shit out of what we all know in society as diet culture. It's an event that I'm putting on with EDF for Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which is awesome. I'm so stoked to be involved with that, especially as someone who has dealt with that shit her whole life. And all the proceeds will obviously go to the Eating Disorder Foundation. We already have 70 tickets sold, which is crazy. It's going to be at the Mercury Cafe Ballroom. We got moved to a bigger space. It's going to be awesome. So if you're in Denver, check that out. Links are in the show notes, in my link tree, my website, all that fun stuff. And then, support the pod any way you can. I'm always here. I'm always excited to have people listening, and feel free to email me, DM me, all the fun things. Today's episode is a very highly anticipated for me episode since a few days ago. And that is because at the time of recording, today is the Wednesday after the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl was on Sunday. You're probably listening to this a week and a half later. And I am going to discuss a very controversial Super Bowl ad that came out and caught America by storm. And of course, I'm talking about the Hims and Hers Super Bowl commercial. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I would highly, highly suggest taking a pause, scrolling down in the show notes, and clicking the link that has the link to the YouTube Super Bowl commercial, because you have to watch it. It's 60 seconds long. But boy, does it have a lot to say in those 60 seconds. So this ad went out during the Super Bowl. The ad itself was actually released on YouTube a few weeks prior at the end of January. Hi, Winnie. You can hear Winnie shaking in the background. And it didn't really gain any attention, right? It was just kind of released on YouTube. No one really saw it. But then obviously it got its big airtime during the big game or whatever. And so going into it, first, we have to ask ourselves, what the fuck is Hims and Hers? What are we talking about? Hims or Hers? I don't know if it's called Hims and Hers or it's just Hims and then they have a division that's called Hers, but Hims, Hers, whatever, okay? This is a telehealth company that offers personalized treatment plans for a myriad of concerns, whether it's hair loss, skincare, mental health, sexual education, sexual health, birth control. And they have now ventured into the ever-growing sector that is weight loss. And what's interesting is I knew about this brand because I get their ads on my Instagram and my Facebook all the time. And I think it's because I interact with a lot of content online that has to do with recovery, intuitive eating, anti-diet. And I don't think the algorithms are able to decipher between like what is diet culture versus what is like recovery culture, if that makes sense. So they're just sending me like weight loss and health ads because they think that that's what I'm interested in when I'm actually interested in the opposite. So I already knew about this brand, but they're basically an online company. You can, consult with them, be like, hey, I'm having, a lot of acne. Can you help me out? They have like doctors that will get online with you. You have like a little Zoom appointment. They prescribe you something, you get it in the mail, right? Lots of companies do this. Hims has become a pretty successful one. According to their website, they've had millions of online consults, millions of subscribers. They have a 4.8 star review on their website. And what's most interesting is that when you go to the website now, I don't know how long it'll stay up there, but now you go to the website, a pop-up comes at the bottom right-hand corner, and it's a pop-up of the ad that was from the Super Bowl. And it says, watch the ad Big Pharma doesn't want you to see. And then it's the ad from the Super Bowl, which is promoting their weight loss products. If you also scroll down on the website in their little footer, like boilerplate links, they have a BMI calculator link and a calorie deficit calculator link. So this company is very much entrenched in the system that is diet culture, right? Which is BMI is the only way to tell if you're healthy. You have to eat on a calorie deficit. They kind of subscribe to the idea of calories in, calories out, and we can tell that by the links they have on their website. So that's who they are. That's who this brand is, okay? So they get an ad put up for the Super Bowl. It goes out, immediately gets all kinds of news coverage, okay? You could just Google this and you will see it's been on CNN. Adweek wrote an article about it. I have several articles linked in here that I'm going to talk about. On social media, people blew up about it. The ad itself, the last time I checked, actually had like not that many views. Let's see what it's at now. Okay, so now it's at 167,000 views. Yesterday when I was organizing for this episode, it was at 157,000 views. So overnight it got 10,000 views. So people are starting to look at it, and the ratio is awful. It has that many views, but it has like 680 likes. So people are going to it and they are literally just being like, this is awful. A lot of negative comments. So let's get into what the ad itself is. All right. It's a 60-second ad. Big spending ad, right? Super Bowl, a lot of money. The first thing that it opens up on is a compilation of images where it talks directly to bodies, because it has someone like jiggle their fat, like they're stepping on a scale immediately. The first thing you see, stepping on a scale. Then you see a guy lift up his stomach and let it bounce, and there's this like jiggly sound effect. And the first line is, obesity is America's deadliest epidemic. So that's like hitting hard right out of the gate, right? Obesity is America's deadliest epidemic. It then shows all these articles with the word obesity. It does like a big collage where, it's showing all the different articles that talk about the obesity epidemic. 74% of us are overweight. There's all these graphics and all this footage of like fast food, walking through a gas station, animals attacking each other. And then it says obesity leads to 500,000 deaths each year. There's, 500,000 deaths. There's a clip of this woman looking at her young child saying, well, you just have to stop eating, Jimmy. Like, it's this really weird collage of imagery from all these different parts of our eras as Americans. And then all of this information kind of just like splattered above it that's talking about how deadly obesity is, right? And then it jumps into, this is America. It shows more imagery, women in bathing suits, something's wrong, something's broken. It's the system. Welcome to weight loss in America. It's a $160 billion industry that feeds on our failure. There are medications that work, but they're priced for profits, not patients. This is America. This system wasn't built to help us. It was built to keep us sick and stuck, but not anymore. And this is at the point in the commercial where it goes from crazy fear-mongering imagery of this is America, this is crazy, we're sick, we're stuck, to now someone's opening the Hims and Hers app, and all of a sudden it's a photo of an injectable and it says weight loss. And it's a woman happily looking on her phone. Hims and Hers offers life-changing weight loss medications. Affordable, doctor-trusted, formulated in the USA. It's delivered to your door. It's, more imagery of people looking on their phones. Now there's like fat people doing yoga, feeling themselves. They're doing little haha, look into the camera. They're holding a vial of the actual injectable. And then, widescreen shows all the participants, Hims and Hers. It's mostly people in large bodies. So just from that description alone, we can kind of see that what they're setting up is this idea of, hey, look, we know the system is broken. Hey, look, we know that this probably feels uncomfortable, but wait, we have the product for you. Something that they use in the ad is that their product offers options. And what they're saying by that is you don't have to subscribe to whatever big pharma is putting out there, which in this case is obviously talking about the brand names of Ozempic and Wegovy. But no, look at what we have, right? This is what big pharma doesn't want you to see. This is their whole take on the whole commercial is it's us versus big pharma. They are placing themselves on our side of the picket line, so to say, and they're being like, no, we're with you. We're also against big pharma. We have the solution, right? So that's kind of an overview of like what the commercial is. And the end of it says, join us in the fight for a healthy America. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't get what the big deal is. Like, we see shit like this all the time. It's just another ad for weight loss. It's just another like diet being like, I'm not like other diets, right? But no, this is where it gets interesting, okay? Because when I first saw the commercial, I probably had the same reaction you did, which is like, okay, that was a little extra. Like, they didn't need to fucking show all that, but okay. And I looked into what the actual issue is and why people are upset about it. And not just people, but like lawmakers and the FDA, okay? So this is what the big deal is. This is what's going on. The drug that they prescribe, specifically in their weight loss section of the app, right? Let's ignore all the other supplements they have. They have a ton of other supplements, medicines, whatever. The specific drug that Hims prescribes for weight loss is a compounded drug, okay? And it doesn't mean that it's a generic of something like Ozempic or Wegovy, right? To be specific, they have injectables, and then I think there's like a pill you can take. Both of them are compounds, I believe. And so the FDA is not able to regulate compounded drugs the same way that it regulates brand names like Ozempic, Wegovy, right? So they offer a compound version of those drugs because the brand name Ozempic, Wegovy are in a national shortage, right? We've known this for a year, maybe 2 years now. And the reason they're allowed to do that is because of something called the fair balance. So when a drug that is widely used or widely needed goes into a shortage, the FDA allows a certain amount of facilities to make compound drugs so that people can get their hands on the drugs, right? So Ozempic's been in shortage, Wegovy's been in shortage. The FDA is like, all right, these companies can compound the drug, make like a similar one to it and prescribe it until the shortage kind of solves itself. The problem is the shortage has lasted so long because of the popularity of these drugs. So now the compounds are getting more out of hand and they're becoming more widely available because of companies like this. And to put it into a little bit of perspective, if you need Ozempic or Wegovy, typically that is a $1,700 a month bill that you have to pay so that you can get that medicine, right? Regardless of what your health status is, depending on maybe your insurance covers part of it because you have type 2 diabetes or whatever it is. Or you go to someone like Hims and Hers, you get the compound, you pay $165 a month. A fraction of what it costs to get the brand names, right? And a common misconception, and something that I wanted to look into for myself because I didn't understand this, is, okay, but if a compound is the same thing, why is it that big of a deal? If you know what the term generic means, you know that a generic drug is basically the same exact drug of what you're being prescribed, but it's not the brand name. So for example, like I am on Wellbutrin every day. I take Wellbutrin every day. I get the generic of Wellbutrin at the pharmacy because the name brand itself is like way more expensive, but it's literally the exact same ingredients, right? So the pharmacy gives me the generic. I have like a $5 copay or whatever, and I get Wellbutrin, but it's not really Wellbutrin. It's like bupropion or whatever. But it's the exact same thing because generics are allowed to be made with the same processes, ingredients as the brand names. However, compounds only include the same active ingredients, but do not have the same regulations from the FDA to control production and labeling. So if you get a generic drug, typically there's a serial number attached to it, and you can track where that generic was made, how it was made, where it comes from, right? If you get a compound drug, there's absolutely no way to track what bulk outsourcing facility it came from. No matter, even if someone prescribes it to you, that doctor doesn't necessarily know where it's coming from. So there's a huge difference in regulations between brand names and generics and then compound drugs. And this is the big issue that has become kind of part of the headlines with this ad, right? Is this ad is clearly saying, America's sick, we have the solution, yet their solution is something that is highly unregulated. Not illegal, because again, compounds are allowed to be made in a shortage. There's a huge shortage of Ozempic. People want to lose weight. People want the injectable. They're allowed to make it. But is it ethical, right? So as I looked more into this, the reason why we are allowed to make compound drugs outside of the shortage is because we do need to tailor make some drugs for patients, right? So compounds are typically made like most known in like a pharmacy, right? So if you have a patient that is prescribed something and maybe they can't swallow a pill, they need it to be liquid, pharmacists have the ability to take that drug and compound it in a way so that it becomes a liquid medication so the patient can take it. So that's why those regulations are in place. It's so that if a patient needs a different way to take a drug, pharmacists are allowed to do that. This also happens when like neighborhood pharmacies experience a shortage of a specific brand name drug or a generic. If they have the active ingredients, they are allowed to make a compound of the drug so that the patient can receive that. Again, this is like really just a temporary solution for a shortage of a drug. It's not a permanent solution, if that makes sense. All of this information I'm getting, I should have said this earlier, is from livescience.com. I have the link in the show notes. But this is direct from the article that I'm going to read you about these specific compound versions of GLP-1s, which is what they call the injectables that are known as Ozempic, Wegovy, these compound drugs. So looser labeling requirements for compounded versions of GLP-1s can also lead to confusion about dosage, according to an FDA alert issued in July of 2024. The agency had received reports of patients being hospitalized after accidental dosing errors with compounded weight loss drugs. There have also been alarms about compounding pharmacies using different versions of the active ingredients in these medications, leading to adverse events. Compounded medications have led to tragedy before. In 2012, unsanitary conditions at a compounding pharmacy caused a 20-state outbreak of fungal meningitis that killed 64 people and infected nearly 800 others. So even though compounding is legal and can be a life-saving measure when there is a shortage of a specific drug, because it is not regulated and really can't be regulated the same way, things like this happen, right? So this is the big issue with the ad, mostly concerning the drugs. We'll get into the cultural stuff in a second. But because this came out, there were a few senators that kind of came to the FDA and were like, yo, what the fuck? In fact, that was actually written in the letter. It was Senators Richard Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, and Roger Marshall, a Republican from Kansas, they wrote a letter to the FDA expressing concern that the lack of fair balance is a loophole. Remember, fair balance, that's what we talked about earlier. Fair balance is what allows people to compound drugs when a shortage happens. The lack of fair balance is a loophole for those selling compounded medications. And then direct from the letter, it says, to the extent this falls within a regulatory loophole for the FDA's authorities, we plan to soon introduce bipartisan legislation to close the gap. Again, the reason why they're allowed to compound these is for the shortage, and the executive director... What is this? The executive director of the Partnership for Safe Medicines. This is a pharma industry trade group. They represent several people in big pharma, so take that with a grain of salt. The executive director, his name is Shabir Saftar. He said, by mass marketing and mass producing compound medications, we are devolving the safety of our drug supply. We need compounding, but the rules were designed the way they were because no one ever thought we would have wide-scale usage of these medications. He said this in urging the FDA to ban the ad. So the senators are coming together. They're trying to introduce a bill that, you know, we need to clean up this legislation because this is getting out of hand. Compounds are being sold by all these random companies. They're advertising at the Super Bowl. It's reaching way too many people. The executive director of the Partnership for Safe Medicines is saying we need to ban this ad. We're, compounding. This is kind of diluting our product. And I think the reasoning for both of these is obvious. No one really thought weight loss injections were going to take off the way they did, specifically because they were really, made for people who have like medical issues like insulin resistance, high A1C. And so it's not really meant for just like a random person that wants to lose weight. It's meant for someone who like medically needs to change systems in their body. But because it's become so popular, we have this shortage, which causes compounding drugs. All these people can now get prescribed these weight loss things. And now we're in a place where lawmakers are like, okay, well, actually, this is kind of a big issue. What I find really interesting, and we're going to get more into like the cultural aspects of this ad versus just kind of the law and what's going on with the drugs, is that we have a few different parties involved that are fighting each other in this ad, in this scenario, right? We have Big Pharma, who in the Hims and Hers eyes, that company, in their perspective, they're like, we are anti-Big Pharma. We are anti, I don't know how they could be anti-Big Pharma, but still have like doctors and have these medications. So whatever. They're saying we're on the people's side. We're not on the Big Pharma side. We have these senators and lawmakers who are like, well, actually, these laws exist for a reason. There's a lot of danger happening getting people to be prescribed these drugs. We don't know the regulations. We don't know what's happening. We have another guy from Big Pharma, again, saying, okay, the compounds are kind of fucking with people. It's getting, our supply is getting diluted. But Hims is still putting their feet in the ground saying, no, we're anti-Big Pharma, but we have this drug, but the drug is the right way to go, right? So it's kind of confusing. And the big piece of this ad that I think is kind of what started this controversy is like, what does this mean culturally? What does this imagery mean culturally? From the top down, looking from a bird's eye perspective, a lot of insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies have kind of taken on this role in advertising the last 10 to 20 years, where they use compelling stories and imagery to sell you their product. It's no longer like, black and white commercials of someone being really sad. And then it's like, ask your doctor about Lexapro. Like, it's not like that anymore. Now there's these really intricately scripted commercials about, this woman that wants to lose weight so she can perform an adult ballet recital and put on a tutu, and she looks at her tutu every day, and, she starts taking Ozempic, and then, oh my God, like she's able to dance on stage, and they're appealing to your emotions. This is a very new way that these pharmaceutical and insurance companies can kind of appeal to your emotions to make you feel like they're not selling you a product, they're not selling you a service, they're selling you a story, right? And so this is exactly what Hims is doing with this Super Bowl commercial. They're saying, you know what? Hey, we see the system is broken. We see it's unfair. We see, the women measuring themselves and the men wishing they were more muscular. Oh, we know it's so annoying to weigh yourself. We know it's so annoying that, billionaires and lawmakers decide your health. But hey, we have the solution. And their big thing is, oh, it's an app. It's personalized to you. You get your own doctor. But really, what's the difference between that and like going to an actual doctor and getting prescribed the same thing, right? Their stance is we are against big pharma. So they're not only selling you a weight loss product, they're selling you on your ethos. They're selling you on what are your morals? Are you against big pharma? If you're against big pharma, you got to go with Hims because we got the solution. The thing that really, I think, stuck with me, that really got my mind thinking about the ad and why I wanted to do this episode, is there is a certain level of cognitive dissonance like you have to have as a company, as a marketer, as whoever, the hundreds of people that approved and worked on this ad. There's a certain dissonance in commenting on the toxicity of diet culture while simultaneously promoting a product that plays directly into that system. They wouldn't have a weight loss product to promote without diet culture. They wouldn't have a business to make millions of dollars if it weren't for societal beauty standards, right? Because a lot of the stuff they have on their website it seems like more aesthetic medicine. It's not really like it doesn't look at like, energy or like appetite. Like it seems like it's all like, skin, hair, nails, things that are a little more outward appearance based. And so in my mind, commenting on diet culture and then being like, oh, but we have a weight loss product is kind of the same thing as being like, oh, the patriarchy is awful. We need to end the patriarchy, but women need to shut up about it. It's kind of like you're saying the same thing. Like you're not on our side. And so when I watched this ad, I didn't ask myself, is this relatable? Which is probably what a lot of advertisers ask themselves when creating an ad. It's not, is this relatable? It's, is this appropriate? For everyone watching this ad, seeing someone jiggle their belly, watching a scale go up to 300 pounds, watching, women lining up in bikinis, is that an appropriate image to be showing people when you are also peddling an unregulated weight loss product? Because in their eyes, they're saying, oh, we're going to appeal to people by pointing out how annoying this is, right? We're going to appeal to women by saying, oh, isn't this crazy that, you've been put under all this pressure? Isn't it crazy? Look at all these magazines. Oh, women have been shamed their whole lives. We got the solution. We're going to deliver a shot to your door and you're going to feel better. They are selling you not only a product, they're selling you like a fight. And the end of the ad, like I said earlier, it literally says, what did it say? Join us in the fight for a healthy America. So they're saying, by buying this product, you are joining us in a fight against big pharma, against the toxicity of diet culture, while also being like, yeah, we exist because of diet culture. The imagery that we see, and again, I really hope you watch the ad because it's just, oh God, like it's so hard to get into every single still and image that was used, but it's both like really compelling and really reductive, right? Because you see the belly jiggling, you see women with tape measures around their waist, you see the mom tell her little boy, well, you just have to stop eating, Jimmy, and that all feels very like, oh yeah, that is fucked up. You watch that and you're like, yeah, now that I'm seeing it all together like that is fucked up. But it's kind of reductive, right? It's kind of looking at the wellness industry being like, this is all it is. This is all America is doing for you. And then there's this like really compelling imagery where there's, a photo or a video of like a bunch of lawmakers at a desk, and it's covered with font that says $160 billion. And the ad is telling you like, yeah, the health industry is now a $160 billion industry. And it's pointing out the hypocrisy of these health companies saying, oh, we're here to help you. But in reality, they're not helping you because they're making money. And if it was helping you, we wouldn't be in this so-called obesity epidemic. The other thing that is really important to point out about this ad is that they are using the song This Is America by Childish Gambino and showcasing like a bunch of like white fat people being like, oh, we're going to lose weight. Like that song is so wild to choose for this because like famously it's a song of protest that came out like 7 years ago that is showcasing not only the injustices that people of color face in the country every day, but like the violence that is just normalized in our society. So they're using this like protest song that has nothing to do with what they're talking about, but because it says this is America and their stance is, oh, look, this is America, it's so fucked up, we're the solution. They're like taking advantage of the messages that were portrayed in that really famous song and music video and using it kind of to their advantage to peddle something else. If you look at the YouTube comments, that's one of the highest mentioned things on the ad is, wow, this song choice is wild. Because I think a lot of people agree, like that was such a important moment in our culture when that song came out because it was kind of, you know, one of the first more popular songs to really point out what was going on. We've always had protest music. We've always had, you know, women and people of color and disenfranchised communities talk about struggles and injustice in their music. This was one of those songs that just got so much attention because it was written and performed by someone who already had a platform, and it was like a crazy, well-produced music video. And, you know, social media was much more active at the time than it was before. So not only are they kind of contradicting themselves with this whole diet culture thing, but they're also using this song that kind of has nothing to do with what they're talking about. And it just I don't know why it like feels like cultural appropriation. That's probably too strong of a phrase to describe that, but it feels weird. It feels like uncomfortable. So let's go into the company's response. Let's talk about what the company has said since this has happened. If you look at their social media pages, I think, so today is the February 12th. As of today, this episode won't come out for a week, but as of today, there hasn't really been anything that they put on their social media. There is, let's see, they posted the ad. It has like, you know, a ton of comments. There's a lot of comments on all of their posts. And yeah, they haven't said anything specifically about the controversy. Like they haven't kind of said anything about the backlash, but on their social media. But let's look at what this same article from livescience.com, they're talking about the Craig Primack, the company's senior vice president. He says, Hims and Hers uses compounded semaglutide only from FDA-regulated bulk outsourcing facilities. Patients can check the testing related to their batch of medication on the company's app. The testing covers bacterial and viral contamination, impurities, and whether the concentration of the drug is correct. He also said that because Hims and Hers is not a drug manufacturer, the company is not subject to the FDA's doctrine of fair balance, which requires that product advertisements include information about risks and side effects alongside benefits. Patients get that information during the consultation and prescription process, he said. So this is a very smart way of going around the entire issue and basically saying, yeah, but we're not liable, right? Because he's saying that it's the patient's responsibility to speak within their consultation with their doctor about side effects, benefits, all of these things. Because I'm sure, as you all know, whenever you watch like a pharmaceutical company commercial, it's always like, really fun imagery. Like, oh, woman, oh, now she's happy, and then at the end, it's like a super fast, really low voiceover of like all the side effects. It's like, do not take Wegovy if you're allergic to Wegovy, may cause risk of heart attack, whatever. So they have to do that because it's an FDA approved drug. Because this is not technically FDA approved or really that regulated, they don't have to do that. And I want to point out, he did say it comes from an FDA regulated bulk outsourcing facility. So this is kind of where it gets murky is there are bulk outsourcing facilities that create compounded drugs, and they are FDA regulated in the way that there's like, it has to be sanitary. It has to be, I think, like maintained a certain way, but it's not regulated the same way as the ingredients are for a generic drug, like we talked about earlier. So even though it might be an FDA regulated facility, it is not an FDA regulated process. And that is the huge difference. Is, again, he says, this counts for bacterial, viral contamination, impurities, whether the concentration of the drug is correct. And he's saying, you can test all of this related to your batch in the company's app. But my question is, if you're in the app and you're trying to see if the drug that this app prescribed you is, good, why would the app tell you it's bad? Why would the app disclose information like that? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. It's a very sneaky way of saying, hey, we're not liable, but also there's this feature that you can actually check. But when you check it, it's probably not going to tell you it's like a bad batch, because why would they tell you that? There was also a statement released alleging that industry groups are criticizing the ad in an effort to stifle competition and quote unquote cancel an advertisement that directly calls out how they are part of a system that fails to prioritize the health of Americans. This is a statement I took from Adweek. I'll also put the link in this description. The Adweek article was also very interesting. Let's read that again. Cancel an advertisement that directly calls out how they are part of a system that fails to prioritize the health of Americans. Does that sound like a little bit of hypocrisy to you guys? Because that sounds a little fucking dumb to me. Because, again, this company is like, hey, I know it's fucked up. I know that you're struggling over there. I know you don't want to get on the scale. So how about this, sweetheart? Download the app. Meet with one of our doctors, and we'll send you something to your door. You don't even got to walk into a hospital. You don't even have to do nothing. And you know what? It'll be branded with Hims and Hers. It'll have a cool sage green label, and you won't have to worry about where it come from. No more annoying orange bottles for you from the pharmacy. But but at the same time, they're saying that there's a system that is not prioritizing the health of Americans. And I just find that really troublesome, because they are peddling a product that is not only not regulated, but also we don't know the long-term side effects, right? That hasn't even been touched on in this whole controversy. Is even when we talk about Ozempic and Wegovy, it's not like Ozempic and Wegovy are, good because they're the brand names and they're FDA approved. We still don't know the long-term effects, right? This craze became a thing, 2-3 years ago? Has it even been that long? And, we saw celebrities starting to take Ozempic. We saw all kinds of people starting to take Ozempic just because they could, not because they needed it. And we still, because it hasn't been used for that long, because not enough time has passed, we don't know what's going to happen to those people, right? We do know that short term, it can cause a lot of metabolism issues. If you listen to the episode with my friend Maddie Mayfield, I guess maybe a few months ago now, she talked about her experience with Ozempic and how she was having severe stomach pains. She couldn't eat. She was vomiting constantly. She felt sick. And that was within 1 month, 2 months of taking it. She had to get off of it because she felt so ridiculously awful. And that's insane, right? Not saying that there aren't people who need it. Not saying that it's an evil drug, not saying that there isn't nuance to this conversation, because obviously there is. But because we're looking at it as a society from the perspective of, okay, thinness is the best thing you can be. Thinness is the most important thing you can be. And thin is equal to health. Health is equal to thin. Then clearly any weight loss product is something that's going to help you. And we just prescribe it to whoever because they can. I remember I listened to a podcast not too long ago with Chelsea Handler, who I love. I think she's hilarious and stupid and crazy, and just I think she's awesome. But she said on the podcast, she's like, yeah, my doctor just like offered me Ozempic. She's like, yeah, my doctor just literally said one day, oh, if you want to lose a few pounds, I can prescribe you some Ozempic. And she herself thought that that was crazy. And I think she tried it, or maybe did like one injection or something, and it really fucked with her. And she was like, yeah, it's like weird that that's an option now. It's weird that you can just get a shot to lose weight, and it doesn't even have, like she said, it didn't have anything to do with her health. It was just her doctor saying, oh, I know you're hosting this award show. If you want to lose some weight, here's this option. So I feel like I've talked in circles a little bit. I was trying my hardest to be as organized as possible with this, but I got a little crazy in the middle there because I am very annoyed about this ad. So we talked about the implications of the drugs, right? The fact that it's a compound, it's not regulated. The lawmakers are trying to be like, hey, we need help. Big Pharma is talking about it. Hims is like, we're anti-big pharma. That's why we're better. And then we went into culturally, what does this mean? They're using this music that has nothing to do with their message. They're also like commenting on a message while also pushing out the same message. So I went ahead and I asked my followers what they thought about this ad. And I want to read you some of the responses because it's very funny to me. So I just asked, I'm doing an episode about Hims, the Super Bowl commercial. I put a link to it. I'm like, what do you think? So let's see. We say Hassan Subzwari says misinformation and dangerous. Fuck them. My friend Maddie, I was just talking about her, said complete hypocrisy, which is honestly fitting considering the fabric of American capitalism. Beautiful, Maddie. Couldn't have said it better myself. Gandhi Gregory says, I've come to start noticing famous people who use weight loss drugs like that. Very skeletal face. Okay, accurate. He also said the fact that they're selling weight loss GLP-1 that's not even approved by the FDA sounds dangerous AF. Totally, dude. SD Childress says terrible. They're contributing to the very issues that we're railing against in the spot. Yeah, dude. Yep. Someone said weaponizing body image to sell drugs under the guise of health. Pretty fucking American. Honestly, yeah, that is pretty fucking American. Akeem says it completely missed the point. Straight up money grab for a piece of the profit. Yep. My boyfriend responded and said, out of touch. Fuck off, Hims hers. Kristen Wood says fat phobic and shameful. Yes, I didn't even mention that. The fat phobia is really interesting, right? Because in a weight loss ad, like they're obviously going to use people that live in larger bodies because it's a weight loss ad. They're not going to show you a bunch of like really thin people because then it's like, well, those people are already thin. What does that mean? And it's interesting because it's like, on one hand, I want people in larger bodies to have opportunities to do things. Like all of these people in this ad are actors, right? They're not people that are like real patients that they just plucked off the street. They're models, they're actors, they're people who live in larger bodies and are aesthetically pleasing, have a cute outfit on, right? So like, I'm happy that they got to do an ad and got paid to do it. And maybe they got to add to their like acting reel, but I'm also mad that they were kind of exploited in this advertisement that was basically saying like, we are sick and stuck. America has made us this way. We have the solution. And they're kind of like showcasing these people in larger bodies being like, we can help you. These people need help. When in reality, like those people could be healthy as a horse. And just because they live in a larger body, they're automatically cast in a weight loss ad. So that I'm glad Kristen brought up fat phobia because I feel like that's a big one. This person said it was a shitty ad, but controversy open to listening. Well, I hope you listen to this podcast. My friend Madeline, love Madeline, said, I really thought it was going in an entirely different direction, like empowering, but nah. I know, right? Like when you first look at the ad, you're like, okay, this is a little weird, but maybe it's going to get better. Nope, it just gets worse. Graham says, the fact they used This Is America as the song was a bold and problematic choice. 1000% agree. Like I said, this is a majority of the comments on YouTube, at least. They feel like that song was highly inappropriate. And then Madly Sapphic said, yikes. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I think to wrap up this episode, this very impassioned episode that I had today, I just want to remind everyone that, you know, the decisions that you make about your body and your own health are yours, right? I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. Anyone on the internet who, you know, claims to be an influencer or wellness or health advocate, like any of us, whether we're on the diet culture side, the recovery side, we're not the director of your movie, right? We're the director of our own movie. We're sharing our own experiences. Some of us are trying to go against, you know, the diets and the bullshit. Some of us are for it. Some of us are trying to peddle our own flat tummy tea or whatever the fuck. But at the end of the day, what you decide to do with your body is your decision, right? Whether it's to pursue weight loss, whether it's to recover from an eating disorder, whether it's to get into a different workout routine, whether it's to repair your relationship with food, whatever it is, like that is your thing. And I'm never going to tell you what to do. I do think it's important in these times, in these unprecedented times, these historic times that have been happening for the past 10 years, to be as educated as possible when it comes to any type of like new prescription, drug, workout routine, any type of influence that might be bestowed upon you about like food. There's a lot of fear mongering that happens because of social media now that we have access to millions of people at, you know, our fingertips. Anyone can say, oh, seed oils are scary and terrible and inflaming and you can't eat them. And then that causes a bunch of people to stop eating certain categories of food because this one person said it. So try your best to be as educated as possible, right? Like look at the people who work in the field, do your own research, and do what makes you feel good, right? No one can tell you what to do with your body. It's just important that whenever you pursue a new health journey that you ask yourself, can I pursue this while also maintaining who I am, right? That's the biggest thing. Let's end this with a little fun affirmation that I wrote. Not only are you the director and creative force, you are the main character in your life's movie. So act like it. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to My Body, My Jokes. Please be advised that the information provided in this podcast is for general discussion purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always, always, always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare professional with any concerns you might have regarding the topics discussed in today's episode. Also, if you or someone you know is struggling with an eating disorder, please call the National Eating Disorders Association helpline at 1-800-931-2237. Bye.